Welcome to the official pod. Eric Allen here in studio with Jets assistant GM Rex Hogan. Rex, what is this week like from your perspective? Because you got to get down to 53, and then you look at waivers, and then you have to assemble a practice squad. Got to be quite busy.
Yeah, it's wild. It's fun. We call it the second draft, so to speak, because you're getting another opportunity. The waiver wire, they flood it with, several 100,000 players and names that are out there, and our pro staff does a tremendous job, starting with Chad Alexander and Greg Nejma and the rest of our pro scouts, getting things organized and evaluating and putting it all together for us to be able to condense the list downs and work through it. So, last night, not a lot of sleep, and it's tough. You're going through making the cut downs, and it's really tough and challenging, especially the way the roster's grown, and we've grown the roster and developed the players. So it's been wild. So
what are those meetings like? And Joe Douglas just talked about it with you downstairs addressing the media here at One Jets Drive, whereas you got position coaches talking about they can't have enough players, right? You got Brant Boyer, who is looking from a special teams perspective, rightfully so. You got you guys who've either had a hand in bringing these guys in or help scout early on. And obviously the coaching staff, Robert Saleh, Jets GM Joe Douglas, everybody's got a say. What are those meetings like?
Yeah, there's really a running dialogue after each one of the preseason games. We get together with the player personnel staff and the coaching staff, and we go through their rankings of the players, how we see the players on the practice field, how they see it, and then leading up to the game, how they performed in the game. So each week of the three preseason games, we kind of build this vision in our mind of who's progressing, who needs to make some improvements. And by the time you get to those final meetings, it's not just a total download of information. We've worked up to it and have kind of in our minds which direction we're going to go.
Did you guys as a staff early on know that, hey, we do have really good depth here. This roster has been transformed, and in a few weeks, this is gonna be tough.
Yeah, we felt really good about the competition we created each level of the team, and in each one of the positions as well. So we knew, we could feel it, we could see it, that the roster is getting better. The toughs, and as the roster gets better, the decisions and the cuts get harder. And this was, by far the toughest one we've had since we've been here in the 2019 season. Since the 2019 season, so. Kudos to our player personnel department overall for identifying the players. Our coaches have given us great profiles. We're all on the same page of what they want in each position. And our coaches have done a great job of developing the players and making them candidates to have options after here. And, we've talked about, we had, 7 guys claimed today. There were 4 other guys claimed in the past couple weeks who we released, and then in addition to Eddie Pinheiro signed with Carolina. So that's 12 guys off of our training camp roster who are now with other teams, which is, it's cool, but it's tough for us at the same time because we've selected them, we've brought them in, developed them, but wish them the best.
How many years in the National Football League is this for you right now?
This is year 20th season coming up.
Okay, so this is your 20th experience with this.
Yeah.
You ever have an experience where you start training camp and you put a number of guys on waivers where at the end of training camp, 12 of those guys are on another team?
No, it's the most we've had, and especially at the cut down, it's the most that I've had in one given moment.
It's something else, and I'm not going to ask you what was the conversation they had longest on. Let's start with a couple guys who actually made the team, though.
Sure.
Undrafted free agents, Zonovan Bam Knight and Tony Adams. Let's start with TA first,
Sure.
because I think Bam Knight, he gets the ball in his hands, so people are a little bit familiar with him. What stood out to you about Adams throughout camp, but also take me back to why you signed him following the draft?
Yeah, our guys did, in terms of the draft, did a great job of identifying him. And for draft consideration, ultimately. We ran out of picks, but through the trade ups. But we always had identified Tony as a guy that we wanted on our roster, whether or not it was through the draft or signing in free agency. And we were fortunate enough for him to slide through and get him and recruit him to come here. And our coaching staff, as well as the player personnel staff, did a great job of recruiting him after the draft. But once Tony got here, he had background as being a corner and a safety at Illinois. And so when we got here, our numbers were a little bit down at corner with some injuries. He hopped right in OTAs at corner and was ultimate team guy because he was brought here to play safety. But I think it really helped him just in terms of his development, be able to start out half the field, and then when he made the transition to safety for training camp, ultimately that's where we saw him going once we solidified the corner position, and it really helped him in terms of stages. And both Tony Odin and Marquand did an awesome job with getting him up to speed and quickly making the transition from corner to safety here.
So with that position flex, would he be kind of like an emergency, maybe nickel guy, more inside guy, or is he outside?
Potentially. We like guys who have that, have that value, have that asset, or have those traits, and so we see it as an asset with him and having that value.
I remember the green and white scrimmage. Every time there was a play out there and he was on the field, 22 was thumping. Do you like his activity level?
I love it. I love it. He's got, he's active. He's energetic. He's always got a smile on his face, and he came in with this mindset of I'm going to take a job, and it comes out in his emotions, how he plays, and just like you're saying, his activity and energy, and he plays with urgency and intensity exactly the way we want him to.
Yeah, the safety position, Joe just talked about it. He thought at the end of this process that you guys had 6 players that you can make the argument that they should be on a 53-man roster somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were lucky enough to get Will Parks back on the practice squad, but really felt like the way Will performed during training camp and in the preseason games that he too was a definite 53-man consideration. So we're fortunate to get him back.
Okay, so let's talk about Bam Knight, a guy who went undrafted. When you start making those calls, because you guys were done in the 4th round, you were done early this year, but when you start making those calls during the draft and say, hey, Bam, if it doesn't happen for you in the draft, we're going to come calling.
Yeah, after the draft, we really focused on him and the value he brought. Jonathan Stiegel did a great job of recruiting him post-draft, and then it became a collaboration with all of us in addition to Taylor Embry. It's because we go back and forth as a group, and we do it together. And Bam saw the vision that we had for him, and we talked about his path and his ability to earn his way to the 53, and he bought into that and came in and performed. So it was really cool.
Well, what can you say about his return ability? Obviously, he can carry the football, and he had that nice scoring run against the Eagles when he wasn't going to be denied. But does that put a guy like that over the top?
Yeah, coming out of college at NC State, he led the country in kick return yards, and we saw that on tape. And Brant was excited about it, and we were excited about it. It's kind of the icing on the cake for what else he did in terms of as a runner and receiver. And when you have a guy who can do that and not only provide core value on special teams, it really helps project him how he's going to make our roster. And then the kick return he had against Philly set us up for the game, short field and game-winning drive by Strev.
Let's talk about the Lawrence Cager project. Yeah. What went into the position switch for him, and then how is he a different player than maybe the guy you got your hands on a couple years ago?
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, he goes undrafted and has an injury where he breaks his leg in his grad transfer year from Miami to Georgia. Unfortunate for him in that regard. If not, he's probably a draft pick. And we saw him as a draft pick. We saw him as a big-bodied outside receiver. But we always saw that frame, and he's got long arms, he's broad shoulder, he's well built, and he could bounce anywhere from 217 to 230, and you saw the growth potential in him. And we had talked to him about it last year and about going into OTAs and making the transition in his return to hey, you might be able to make this jump. You got to buy in, and he bought into the off-season training. His body continued to grow. He's around 240, if not north of 240 now, and he's maintained his speed. and he's maintained his receiving value and it probably improved it because of the F tight end value. And he's really improved as a blocker, and it's a testament to what Ron Middleton's done with him and the coaching staff's done.
Yeah, what does that say about him as a guy that he probably looked at himself, and rightfully so? Listen, I could be as successful a wide receiver. I've been playing this for a long time, but that he bought in, and now he's gotten to this point where he's on the 53-man roster.
Yeah, I'm sure he had a moment of, some adversity like we all do, and he looked himself in the mirror and said, what else can I do different? How can I change my path and change my future? Because he bounced from our practice squad to a couple other practice squads as a receiver. And it's a humbling experience when you get cut and then have to realize, man, I got to find a different way. So really proud of Cage accepting that, and then having the self-awareness that I'm going to be able to do this. I'm going to make it.
He's in a pretty cool room now.
Yeah, really
what do you
room.
think about the transformation that you guys have done at tight end? Because Cager joins a group that includes obviously C.J. Uzama. Tyler Conklin had one of the best camps out there, bar none, I think, here this summer at One Jets Drive. And then, of course, you guys draft Jeremy Ruckert as well.
Yeah, it's a really cool room, and we feel like it had a lot of similarities to that safety room. Made a tough decision on Wesco. Love what Wesco brings in terms of his toughness and his blocking and soft hands. And again, that's another room where we felt like those are 6 NFL 53 caliber tight ends. And we were fortunate to get Kenny Yeboah back on our practice squad, and we'll see Kenny continue to develop and contribute like he did last year. And so, in the addition of Ruckert and CJ and Conk, we feel like we've got all those guys who are different and are going to contribute in their own way.
You guys study this 24/7 every day out of the year, but Robert Saleh called Conklin a pleasant surprise. Were you expecting? Again, games are on Sundays. We're going to have to see what the production is. But when you watched him day after day, was there something that came to mind maybe that you didn't see on film?
No, I think what we saw was a guy who was a little bit under the radar because he produced in his role at Minnesota. He produced with targets, and he's got unbelievable hands. He's a former Division III basketball player, so you see his body control. You see the way he can tempo routes and change speeds, and there's a lot of cuts that look like he's making when he's on the basketball court, and how he sets up those routes and changes the speeds and uses burst or gear down, and then he's got the body control when he leaves the ground. So he was a little under the radar in terms of free agency across the board, but man, we felt like adding him with CJ, that those two guys would really complement each other and be a great addition to the tight end room.
A burst gear body control. When you start describing Conklin a little bit, I start thinking about Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, true.
So
Exactly.
What do you think about his transition to date? Because he's made a lot of plays on the practice field. Nothing seems too big for him. And he also seems like a guy who's fitting in well with his teammates, that he's continuing to absorb things.
Yeah, like you said, he's got an infectious personality. Guys are naturally drawn to him, and he invests in people, in relationships, and you can see it in how the camaraderie of that room, first and foremost, has grown. But the similarities of him being having a basketball background and former D1 offers, and how he was, if you want to turn on his highlight tape from high school, it's pretty impressive. But you can see when he leaves the ground, his ability to adjust. He's catching oops and punching on people in the lane, and you see his ability to elevate in his body control and catch the passes, and the way he changes speeds with his routes too. So it's really cool when you see those guys in terms of the movement they have on the basketball court and how it transitions to football.
Last few years here, Jameson Crowder was the leading receiver for this team. Can you speak to what you have in the middle now? Because you re-signed Barrios. Garrett Wilson's got experience both outside, inside. Elijah Moore can play inside as well, and Jeff Smith probably can play inside for you too.
Yeah, he has in the past, and I think all of those guys, the way Mike LaFleur moves guys around within this offense, and the value of them having versatility to play X, to play Z, to play F, and each one of those guys has a unique skill set that they can play inside, they can play outside, and set up mismatches.
How about the speed at the skill positions? I mean, we can talk about it on the defensive side of the ball, but let's focus on the offensive side of the ball. How much of that was an emphasis in the offseason? How much is that coming to light now? The possible explosive options that you guys have at tight end, in the backfield. We didn't even talk about Breece Hall and company. Obviously, Michael Carter leading the way there, and at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, it's been cool, and it was an emphasis for us. And you talk about just on the offensive side of the ball, what we added with Garrett in the first round with his speed, and Breece with his speed, and being a sub 4.4 guy at his size is how unique that is. You know, when you look at what he did at the combine and how he tested, he's up there with what Saquon Barkley what Jonathan Taylor did at that size and speed, which those are three pretty unique guys. And so adding those two guys, and then you add Ruckert, who has some sneaky speed too, and shows up on GPS, and the way he was able to stretch the field at Ohio State, and he's still working his way back to full 100% after his injury, but we've really been pleased with his progress.
Let's flip it to the cornerback position. You draft Sauce Gardner, number 4 overall. Wasn't targeted at all in the preseason. That's pretty rare for a rookie. Yeah. I mean, people are he's gonna be seeing a few passes, I would imagine, in regular season play. But just what did you think of his camp?
I think he's had a great camp so far. He's been everything we thought he would be. You see the height, the length, the athleticism, but what people don't see is the absolute love of the game, how he's the first one on the field, how he's constantly asking teammates on the defensive side of the ball, teammates on the offensive side of the ball. When we had the joint practices, he's talking to the guys who we went against and just looking for tips, and he's an absolute sponge to take in everything and learn, and he wants to grow, and he carries it over to the field. It's been awesome to watch.
Do you like that dynamic at cornerback? You got the big, long, lanky guy, and then DJ Reed, who doesn't have the height, but he plays like he's 8 foot tall, I like to say. And then you got Brandon Echols, got that starting experience last year. Bryce Hall, of course, and then at the nickel position, I think Michael Carter reminded people in that last preseason game that, hey, I'm here, I'm pretty good too, and I can man that nickel spot for you.
Yeah, exactly. It was a heck of a pick. It was awesome play, coming off his guy and Tyrod trying to hit the corner route behind him, or got out of the pocket and tried to hit somebody on the sideline. But it was cool. It's been cool to see MC2 continue to progress after a strong rookie year. But no, the dynamics of that room is different with two guys who have legit height and size in both Bryce and Sauce, and then even though the other two guys are a little bit shorter in stature, they've done a great job in the weight room. Our player performance staff has done a great job of improving Echols' body and building him up and continuing to improve his speed. So it's a good room overall.
How tough is it going to be for teams against you guys in 3rd and long situations? So we saw a taste of it against the Giants. That was like the first time we saw the starters out there for extended time, but we're going to see that against Baltimore and everybody. And I know you can say that with everybody in the NFL, you don't want to be in 3rd and long, but just looking at the pass rushers, especially the depth and the numbers you have at the defensive end position and what you guys did in the offseason there.
Yeah, it starts to get them to 3rd and long. We have to play well on rundowns or early downs, and Brick talks about that, and Robert talks about that, and winning in the early downs and being able to put us in a situation where we can be successful on 3rd and long. But Aaron Whitecotton's done a tremendous job with that defensive line and the way it's built to come in waves. And we've got 10 guys on that group right now who we feel good about, who are going to come in waves. Obviously, they're not all going to be active on game day,
right,
but they're all going to be fighting to be active throughout the week, and it's a good problem to have.
I know everybody's looking forward to see Carl Lawson in game action, no doubt about that. He hasn't played a regular season game yet for the Jets. What about somebody, you talk about flying under the radar. Obviously, we talk a lot about the draft picks, and rightfully so. Jermaine and Michael Clemens, who it's just been all-out effort since the day he walked in the building. But how about Jacob Martin?
Yeah, Jacob was a great addition for us. We're excited about him. He's played right end, he's played left end, he's played in defenses where they have him standing up. But we saw him down in Houston last year against us, and as a guy, as a right end who can really get off the ball, when you need to put him on left, he can do that. He's got length, he has speed, he's got a motor. he brings a new approach, as a little bit more fastball approach than Carl or JFM on as those guys. And so when you go bring him in as the third, brings a different look and a different body type, kind of a change up, if you will, for the tackle he's going against.
So what are your thoughts now, a week out from the beginning of the 2022 season? You're feeling pretty good about the roster, but just like your emotions to see it all come together and finally in action.
Yeah, excited. There's no other way to put it for me other than excited what we can do coming up this season, and with the competition we've created throughout the roster and how it's been finalized, and to watch this group gel over the next week, 10 days, as they come together in practice in preparation for Baltimore. There's nothing more I can say than they're excited about 2022.
You talked just before about the relationship of Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh being in lockstep. Robert said something earlier today that struck me, and it speaks to what you guys are trying to do here. I wanted to get your thoughts on it. He said, this roster is pretty cool. It's being built, not bought.
It's a great way to describe it, because we've gone out and obtained guys in so many different fashions with it, whether it's through the draft, undrafted, free agency, trades, claims. Like, these guys have come from, different obviously different teams and different backgrounds, but have been acquired through different venues. And these guys have gelled together because we're looking for the guys with the same common goal of being teammates, putting the team first, but playing with the effort, intensity, violence, and technique that the coaching staff wants. And we found a group that really want to do that.
Well, and here, I know no timeline on Zach Wilson's return, and we'll get the word from either Robert Saleh or Joe Douglas. But with that being said, I don't want to say a luxury, but how nice is it just to have a guy like Flacco, if you have to give him the ball here to start the season for a game, 2 games, whatever it may be?
Yeah, it's very comforting because of the success Joe's had throughout his career. But not only as a starter, but seeing how he's developed this relationship and connection with Zach and Mike White and Strev, and how strong of a bond that room has, and how they get along, even though Joe jokes that he's the dad and catches the dad jokes of the group, being 14 years or 15 years old or whatever the exact number is. But it's really comforting to know that this guy has seen pretty much every rush that's been brought in, or every blitz, or every coverage, and he's got this just certain calmness and demeanor that, hey, guys, it's going to be all right. Everything's going to be okay. And he can still throw the ball like he did 15 years ago or 14 years ago when he came in the league.
Yeah, I think Flacco's going to be able to throw it when he's 65. He's the guy you want on your team in the neighborhood.
We joke about it. It looks like every ball that comes out of his hand looks like a shot out of a jugs machine.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Hey, listen, hopefully you get some rest this weekend.
Yeah, it'd be nice. It'd be cool.
You get back after it. Enjoyed it as always.
Yeah, appreciate it, E.